All right, let's have a talk. This time, utilitarianism. Not utilitarianism in general. I like to focus on John Stuart Mill's theory of utilitarianism. I'll make honorable mention that utilitarianism was first founded by a philosopher named Jeremy Bentham. John Stuart Mill later learned of utilitarianism and defended a certain version of utilitarianism we call rule utilitarianism. And that became the more popular version of utilitarianism. So a broad discussion of utilitarianism would include Bentham's approach and several other utilitarianists along the way. But we're just going to focus on Mill. So going forward, I'm looking at Mill's version. I'll come back, the comparison between act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism towards the end. So, the idea of utilitarianism, Mill's approach, all of them really, but is that we need a moral theory that's practical and down to earth, based on experience, right? A moral theory that looks at the consequences of the acts rather than the abstract idea that we should follow rules. All right? If you look at the consequences of acts, all right, the first thing you will notice that some acts cause pleasure and some acts cause pain. All right? The utilitarianist umbrella, the fundamental principle is this: humans are governed by pain and pleasure. This idea that we're governed by two sovereign masters, all right, pain and pleasure. The word sovereign means in the human experience, it is impossible. It's impossible for us to go without pain or pleasure. We may have some medical problem, which means we have to be locked up in some kind of hospital forever. But other than that, we experience pain and pleasure, good or bad, right? In terms of what we eat, when we're drinking, conversation with people, entertainment. Entertainment is all but pleasure, okay? Wherever we go in life, we're going to experience pain and pleasure. It can be forced upon us. People can force us to have pain. People can force us to have pleasure, to enjoy ourselves. Okay, maybe not enjoying yourself, but people can make you enjoy yourself if they know you don't. So what I'm trying to describe is the human experience where you can't escape pain and pleasure. And within that domain, see it philosophically, the philosopher argues, look, since we can't escape pain and pleasure unless we're looking at death, why not pursue pleasure and avoid pain? Since we like pleasure and we don't like pain, why not make pleasure a priority? This approach to life is called hedonism. I previously recorded a video on hedonism. Please look at that, right? So if you're pursuing pleasure as a criterion of the good life, or the most important criterion of the good life, we call that utilitarianism. We call that hedonism. And utilitarians and utilitarianism in general is a hedonistic theory. It's a hedonistic theory. So let's look at utilitarian hedonism. Hedonism, I'm pursuing pleasure. What's pleasurable to me? If I were to want to frame utilitarianism in a sentence, how would I put it? Utilitarianism argued that pleasure for the community is the highest good. So I don't look at my pleasure only, but I see myself as a member of the community. As a political theory, a member of the whole society. As a family, the member of the family. So you could define one of the issues of utilitarianism. How do you find the community? If you look at the whole social community, the community of my friends, in either case, if you look at the theory in that sense, changing the community, you'll eventually see that utilitarianism does work. It really, really works. Okay. Mill argues that we should pursue pleasure as the ultimate goal of life. However, the most desirable pleasures are those that produce the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. There's some controversy about that statement from his work, which I'm trying to quote or paraphrase. So he believes that if I'm going to eat pizza, and I eat pizza with my friends, I'm going to have more pleasure. I enjoy the pizza, I taste pizza, it tastes good. But then my friends who also I'm sharing the pizza with are going to reflect that they've enjoyed the pizza as well. And that's going to add more pleasure to me, the pleasure of being appreciated and being with my friends who are laughing. Okay? So, utilitarianism avoids certain other problems that other hedonistic theories avoid. Because utilitarians do not put themselves first. It's an altruistic theory. It put others first and yourself second. If you put others first and forget yourself, you're not being utilitarianist. Okay? Utilitarian is more altruistic because you're pursuing your pleasure, but through other people. If you get a little deeper into the theory, you may want to say happiness for the greatest number of people. What is happiness? Utilitarians define happiness as pleasure itself. If you're eating ice cream, you have pleasure. Okay? If you're not eating anything, like I'm not eating anything right now, I am in pleasure. They kind of cheat a little bit, huh? If your taste bud's bland right now, because you're not in pain, you are in pleasure. Now, if you go to eat ice cream and someone sneaks some salt on it, you're like, ugh, okay? At that moment, you are unhappy. So unhappiness literally is the pain or displeasure, not necessarily full physical pain, okay? So pleasure, taken to all levels, emotional pleasure, psychological pleasure, physical pleasure, okay? Pleasure, all kind of pleasures basically. Dancing pleasures, work pleasures, at the water cooler talking with your friends, all pleasures are there, right? And so if you're bland, you're not in pain, you are technically happy. So I think that's a little cheating, but that's okay too. Because if life is not, pleasures are kind of hot, something positive you're feeling. But if you're kind of bland, you're doing your things, everything's okay, that's also a happiness, you're okay, right? And in addition, each individual's happiness is just as important as the other, okay? My happiness is important to me, your happiness is important to you, okay? So equally important. That's why it's an altruistic theory, all right? Sometimes utilitarianism is misinterpreted when it is seen as a selfless theory, where you put others first and forget about yourself. That is not utilitarianism, because each person's happiness is equal. So if I go buy the pizza, I'm looking for pleasure for myself, but I'm going to share with you, my friend, all right? So I'm sharing with you, because I want pleasure. I know you want pleasure. I'm a utilitarianist, so I share, right? If you understand it, that's good. Now, when you're looking at friends, utilitarianism works in a smaller circle. When you begin to expand and add the community and things like that, it becomes more and more complicated because society is very, very huge. Do I want to share pizza with all my neighbors here? I don't think my wallet could stand the onslaught. So while you're living your life and you're pursuing pleasure, the utilitarians say, don't pursue pleasure for yourself, but pursue pleasure for all. That is, and pursue pleasure for everybody that you're associated with, your family members, your friends. I'm trying to find a means to make this theory work, all right? I could see it working, but it's very, very subtle. The idea comes from the idea of our social obligation or ethical obligation to society, okay? Ethical obligation to society. I mean, can I hurt society without hurting any particular individual? The answer is yes. There are many ways I can hurt society without hurting a particular individual because the pain is distributed across many of them. Like, for example, if I decide to cheat on my taxes and don't pay taxes, I might get away with it, but I am hurting society. Because the lack of funds that are there may be very, very small, but it's still, those are the members of society going to have put forth the money to pay for the infrastructure. Somebody has to pay for the roads. Somebody has to pay for the military, okay? And I'm not doing it, so you're going to have to pay a little more. It may be a few more cents. And this is the challenge to utilitarianism here. It's not that it's wrong, but it's looking at a very subtle wrong. So I would say it's like a very deep, refined theory, if you look at it like that. So I ought to pay as a matter of ethics, not legal obligation. As a matter of ethics, I ought to pay my taxes, all right? And there are many such things you can find in society in which that is called upon, okay? So when I'm pursuing pleasure for all, for example, I'm working, I pay my taxes, all right? In a cheerful way too. I don't try to dodge unnecessarily in the taxes. If I do that, yes, I am being utilitarianist. Imagine a situation where everyone is doing the same thing. What do you have? A very happy society. Period. Just from the taxes alone, a very wealthy society, happy society. I'm pursuing my pleasure, but at no time am I going to make it a burden upon the social order in some way. You know? Which means in business, I'm not going to cheat the customers. I'm not going to shortchange the government their due taxes. I'm not going to, if I'm a business owner, I'm not going to shortchange my employees. Because I want pleasure for everyone I'm associated with. All, you know, if you look at it from utilitarianism that way, it works. And if everyone is doing the same thing, it really, really works. Okay? It really, really works. So it's sometimes difficult to find an explanation for why utilitarianism works, because the pain you cause, or even the pleasure you cause, is very, very subtle and it's distributed over many people. So it can be challenging. The moral principle of utilitarianism: an act is morally right if it produces the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. I just explained that. Okay? I'm contemplating an act. I'm a business owner. And I have many employees. Let's say I have 500 employees. So I'm contemplating their next year's income. Okay? Should I increase it or decrease it? Okay? Relative to my profits, of course. So I have a lot of profits. I'm doing really, really well. Right? But I could even make more profit if I cut down their salary, okay, giving them less and more profit for me. But is that going to produce the greatest amount for a greater number of people? Of course, the answer is no. Okay? On the other hand, if I give them excessive amount of money, okay, really digging deep into my profit, so that if there's any emergency that emerges next year, the business may collapse. That's a very risky place to put my 500 employees in. So it's not a utilitarian idea to pay people excessive money in the business. You have to pay them just right, anticipate all the factors and the dynamics of the business world. And that is a utilitarian approach to business, and it will work. And if the employees have the same thing, giving their all for the company, okay, all, and not selflessly, but working their time, putting their energy, rather than being on the cell phone, on social media at work, you know, or staying at the water cooler all the time, but really putting their time in the company will be very, very effective. I think corporate America has an effective rate, I can't remember the number, very low effective rate, because a small percentage of people in most corporations are actually doing the majority of the work. Mm-hmm. So it can work, right? The greatest amount have for the greatest number of people, but it can also be bad as well, you know? I was looking at examples in which I looked at a corporate leader making utilitarian decisions. We could do the same from the political side, politician as well. What about the individual person on the street? You see, if I'm a regular citizen, what should stop me from stealing someone's bicycle? I steal the bike, I get something, and I enjoy the bike. Okay, I'm happy, they're sad, even. But that's not really what we look at. We have to say, if I engage in this act within the social order, that person will be upset. The police officers call who received a complaint that his bike been stolen, they're going to be concerned. Other citizens, that person's parent, their friends are all going to be concerned, okay, that there are thieves in the neighborhood, okay? You see, if your act is going to cause, remember, it's to combat the community, not that individual's thing, that individual's property. If taking that individual property is going to disturb the community, which it will, it's the wrong thing to do. You see? It's the wrong thing to do. Okay? And so when you look at acts like that and its impact on the community involved, you can see that it's wrong, all right? One of the challenges of utilitarianism is the idea of people experiencing pleasure. There are many counter arguments to utilitarianism that uses pleasure as a way to make it look weak or false, right? Like, for example, I steal Tim's bike. But people don't like Tim because Tim is the troublemaker in the neighborhood. He's always causing problems for people. Okay? So when Tim goes calling the police that his bike is stolen and people hear about it, they don't say anything, but in the back, they're laughing. They're enjoying. The people in the neighborhood, they finally, at last, you got what you deserve. Right? So then perhaps I am a neighborhood hero. Okay? This is called act utilitarianism. I'm violating Tim's right to his property and for the pleasure of other people. This was the original theory that John Stuart Mill inherited from Jeremy Bentham, the previous philosophers, okay? Act utilitarianism. When you look at only the immediate effects, the thing about pleasure is in the moment. So it's hard for utilitarianism to make that go away, all right? You're looking at pleasure in the moment. John Stuart Mill, after his analysis, came in and says, look, we can't look at just the immediate pleasures, okay? We have to look at that because pleasure is pleasure. But we have to look at the long-term effects. We call that induction. Look at the history of it and imagine what would happen. Imagine whenever someone did not like someone in the neighborhood, it was okay to steal from them. How would the neighborhood feel then? Every now and then we can all be annoying to the other neighbors. It wouldn't be very pleasurable. And even Tim, consider humans how we are. The first time his bike is stolen, okay, that's funny. The second time, it won't be funny to most people. And the third time, it's going to be seen by many people as wrong. Right? Mill reasoned that we're going to look at the immediate act, but imagine what happens over time. Okay, this is inductive reasoning. If you apply it in just the right way, you get a better sense of the moral act. And you'll be able to see that if you apply utilitarianism, you ought not to steal Tim's bike just because the neighbors are a little happy. This is called ruled utilitarianism. Ruled utilitarianism allows us to embrace utilitarianism in the long run. We can see the immediate effects. So that means we don't embrace the immediate pleasures. We have to look at the long-term effects of those pleasures. John Stuart Mill aligned himself with Epicurus hedonism, the refined pleasures of life. In this case, pleasures that produce long-term benefits for society. That was the essence of his theory. If you apply the theory just right, as an individual, you can live as a utilitarianist and be a bona fide utilitarianist. For society itself to enjoy it, many more people would have to engage in. In a small community, you can have utilitarianist work. In a large community, a lot more people would have to engage in utilitarianism for it to be universally or socially effective. But a person, an individual, could choose to live like that. Okay? So, if I was going to end here, what is the last thing I could say about Mill's view of utilitarianism? I would say he captures this idea that we have social obligations. But the word social hides what I want to say. We have ethical and moral obligations to society. Don't just make it legal. Oh, it's what we were taught. But we really have individual obligations to society. It spreads so thin we can't see it. All right? You leave your shopping cart in the parking stall at this mall. Okay? The next driver comes in, there's no place except for the one where you left your shopping cart. That is wrong. It's a distributed wrong, because anyone could have came there next. All right? But that is the wrong. Social, individual acts that affect society are distributed so thinly in the negative side, okay? We don't necessarily see it. And the good is also distributed, so we don't see the good that they produce, unless you're a millionaire philanthropist giving lots of money. That doesn't change it just because it's distributed. Wrong is wrong, right is right. So in that sense, I think Mill's utilitarianism captures the idea of social ethics. And for that, we ought to give John Stuart Mill a well-deserved round of applause.